mean, let's face it. We're proud. We want to have something that defines our stories, and we want it to come from what we know, what we've experienced in our own country, and it's we want it to like spell it out because let's face it, superhero stories are for the better part are defined as American stories. So our way in, we figure, is to make it defined by our folklore.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. Today I am with JV Tanjuatco. What's up, man?
Hello. Hey, Duy.
How are you?
Not bad, man.
It's
Not
been a
bad.
while, especially since cons are, not around.
Most likely con. Most likely con. Like, when was the last con? Like,
2019.
Right before. Well, the last con I went was Comic back in Feb 2020.
Yeah.
Just like that's when people were like saying we were briefed by SM. It was the first Comic in set in SM, and they briefed us about like certain protocols, and then they told us, okay, we'll have like alcohol there. There's like nothing about social distancing. It was like, okay, just keep your distance if you have to. Just be careful to go to the bathroom, but that was about it.
That's crazy. Because I haven't been to a con since 2017.
Okay.
And even before that, I was just really going in and out. Like it was an effort to save money. But then like last year, I was able to, I got a raise. So I'm like, okay, I can go back to Comic Cons, and then boom, there are no more Comic Cons.
The timing.
Yeah.
Find the timing lang.
I know.
Okay.
So tell me, why do you love comics? Who was it? What was the spark?
Okay. So basically, it was my tito who he had this habit of like giving me comics that were like bounded in hardcovers. I was like 5 or 6. It was like it was different stuff. And for some reason, he would always give me Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Purely Marvel stuff.
This was like what, the 80s?
Yeah, 80s stuff.
Okay.
And for some reason, he gave his sons DC stuff or something. I don't know. Maybe the guy, God rest his soul, he had a sixth sense about something, and he gave me a lot of Spider-Man. He gave me a lot of Avengers, X-Men, and on purely on a visual level, I was hooked.
Yeah.
We're talking the stuff of George Perez. We're talking Joe Sinott, those guys. And then later on, it became as I got older. I think the one thing that made me stick with comics, especially when I became a teenager, of course, everyone else was probably outgrowing comics by then. I didn't. It was
we didn't at all.
No. I mean, girls were there, but I was just some skinny geeky kid. Never mind. I don't have a chance. I'll just read comics. And, so the first comic that made me realize that, whoa, I love this craft was Incredible Hulk 340, the Peter David Todd McFarlane issue with Wolverine versus the Gray Hulk.
It's the one with the Wolverine cover.
Yeah, with the reflection of the Gray Hulk.
Yeah,
that's what got me. I think that's the very first time I recognized craft, where I really appreciate craft, and it made me realize, okay, who wrote this? Peter David blew my mind. He really just, he just changed the game for me. I mean, because yes, there have been Hulks where he's smart, but the way Peter David wrote the Hulk was very, he made him have a wicked sense of humor. He made him charismatic in a way that no one else had done before. And I had really basically written off Hulk at that time. I was like, what can you do with a character like that? What else can you do? And as I went through Peter David's run, he just kept on changing it up. It wasn't change the status quo for the sake of the status quo. It was just something that was very organic, and you know, it enhanced the character development in ways that I'd never thought before. So that's when I loved comics, when it became a writing thing.
Cool. So it was Peter David, huh?
Peter David, that's what it started. It. Then it became about. I wasn't following anymore the artists. I was following more the writers. It became about, who are the writers. Yes, of course the artists are there. Of course it's got to, back in the 80s. Of course it was Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, Dale Keough, and
Of course, it's still got to be
guys.
drawn well. If it's drawn badly, the story's still gonna suffer.
Exactly. But I would follow a writer no matter what, no matter how, if the art was sort of substandard, I'd still follow the writer, because that's how drawn I was to what they were doing in the craft. When I was a kid, it was about the characters. It was always about the characters, but then it changed as I got older. It became Neil Gaiman, then it became Alan Moore, Frank Miller. So that for me changed it, and it got me, writing. It got me to the place where, I want to, how do I write this? How do I do that? And they would make me study what they did. Because I think that's the case. That was really the case. It was when you're starting to write, when you're starting to like think of concepts, and you're starting to like execute certain things, it's not anymore about reading the comics, not anymore about collecting. It's really, before you know it, I decided, I want to be a writer.
When was that?
When was that? Writer.
When was that exact moment? Do you remember? Where you decided you wanted to be a comic book writer?
I think I was reading this this book. Oh, it's here. Hang on a sec. Let me show it. It's Writers on Comic Script Writing.
Okay.
And it had everyone: Kurt Busiek, Warren Ellis, Peter David, Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison. So this is the book that said like, hey, I can. It's not rocket science. I can do this. Maybe I can fake it till I make it. But I mean, that's what I originally thought. Okay, but like when I read this, it was like, you know what? If I actually research about things, if I learn more about things, then I can actually, maybe I have more of a chance of being a writer. You know what I mean?
I get you. Yeah, absolutely. The more you know, the more it's gonna come out on the page, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because I used to be intimidated. By what the prose of Neil Gaiman, like, he was always getting to these things. But then when you think about it, really bring it down, it's because of his experiences. It's because of what he learned. He wasn't just into comics. He was a journalist. He was, doing a lot of interviews. So it was about that. It was his, it's not just street smarts. It's really a lot of stock knowledge that he brought in, and from his experiences, and that willingness to learn, I guess.
Cool. And then when did you start writing comics, and what was it about?
Okay. It was there was a Marvel competition, writing competition back in the year 2001.
I remember this. I joined it.
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, this is the one that Jason Aaron won for.
Really? Jason Aaron won that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason Aaron won for that. So I wrote a Wolverine story. I even went to Wizard World 2001 in Chicago. Gave submitted my manuscript to, I think, one of the editors. I think it was Mike Martz or something. It was still a Marvel. So yeah, that was the very first time I wrote a script. It was about like it was about Wolverine hitting on this girl, and then it turns out she has powers like Trinity from the Matrix, and then the twist was that it turns out that She was his daughter.
Now he's got daughters.
He's got daughters.
Yeah.
And then, funny enough, they even have characters that were who can do Matrix stuff as well. They eventually did that too.
Yeah. And and then as you moved on, tell me how you came to found Comic Book Lab.
Okay.
So tell us
I
first.
came back.
Tell us what Comic Book
Sure.
Lab is about, and then tell me how you
Okay.
came to make it.
Okay. Comic Book Lab is basically a service that creates comic book content for clients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When I thought of it in the beginning, it was like, I was thinking, how do I monetize being a writer, being a comic book writer? Because most people just the route usually is you come up with samples, and you keep on sending it to comic book companies, you keep on pitching, that kind of thing, or you create your own comic. And I did a thesis back when I was taking my master's in AIM, and back then it was saying that I'd have to have a capital of the very least of in the capital investment of something like 2 million pesos or something.
To start a publishing company?
Just to start a publishing company. Something like that.
Does that include distribution
And
or?
that honestly, I was pretty crappy in my MBA. So I'm sure I did account for my distribution and all that, but I'm sure I'm sure I kind of screwed up the numbers.
That's how much you love comics, though. It's like you're doing your MBA and then your thesis is about comics.
Yeah. So I created a comic, a 5-pager just to for the thesis. And then I interviewed a lot of people for in terms of distribution, for printing and all these things. So anyway, bottom line is it costs a lot to create your own publishing company, much less even create one comic. So I decided that when I came up with Comic Book Lab, wait a minute, what if I make it work for me? What if I just, get hired to create comics? Then someone puts in the bill, and that's how I earn. So it was just basically the whole outsourcing. It was an outsourcing service. So that's how Comic Book Lab came to be.
It's basically, as this Esquire article put it, it's a BPO for comics.
A BPO for comics. So we started up first with private, with just regular people who just hey, I have an idea for a comic. Can you just hey, I have this concept. Can you do it for me? Can you create it? Can you write it? Can you get the artist? And that's how I started. That was the very first project we did was this title called Mythopolis. So someone, Marco Manialak, he had a short story called Dead City. And then he said, hey, can you convert this into a comic? So I said, hey, can we tweak it a little bit, change the story, change some stuff in the story, and then can we call it Mythopolis instead? Because it feels a little more catchier than Dead City.
Yeah.
Tell
our viewers what Mythopolis is about.
Okay, Mythopolis is about two people who are attracted to each other, but they get torn apart by the city filled with mythical beings, and all these beings are from different mythologies. So you name it, they got it: Chinese, Greek, Asgardian, even people from the Bible. We bring it in. Anything who's that isn't copyrighted, we can basically use here. So that's the opening part. So the characters there are Cindy and Ashley. Cindy is the human personification of the Adarna bird, and Ashley is this other character that he's what we call a peacekeeper who maintains the peace in Mythopolis. So they find each other. It's lust at first sight, and things keep on splitting them up to to get together. But at the same time, we get to learn about how the residents of Mythopolis are refugees from the war between heaven and hell. So we get into that, and we get into the politics of of Mythopolis, where there is a demon underworld that's trying to take over the place. So we have, and there's even other stuff there's a gang war between spring-heeled jacks, those legendary creatures from Victorian London, versus capres. So we got a lot of that stuff going on.
Putting all of the myths together. Where would, if people wanted to read it, would they be able to?
Yeah, they can go to Secret HQ of Comics. They can buy the book there. I think issues 1 and 3 are still available there, or you can order from Comic Lab directly on Facebook.
Yeah, don't worry, everyone. I will put links below this video, so you can just scroll down and hit it.
And yeah, we also sell in Phil Bars and Comic Odyssey as well.
Very cool. Any more projects you want to talk about from before? That you already have?
We have another one called War of Whispers. War of Whispers is also from me and Jim Jimenez, and this one is set in World War II, when Manila was still under Japanese rule, and it's about this kid who's strangely enough, he's very carefree. His dad is serving the Japanese in this capacity as a congressman, and he accidentally bumps into his dad talking to an insurgent, and they're planning to deliver a message to the Americans in Leyte, and basically to send a message to tell them it's okay for them to take back the city. So by accident, he's assigned to deliver this message to the Americans, and along the way, he encounters creatures from both Filipino and Japanese folklore. And the thing is, we don't know whether it's all happening or it's all just in a traumatized head. So we use a lot of incidents that happen during that time. Specifically, the rape of Manila comes into play.
Yeah. So
it's one of those stories that not many people know about. So it plays a really strong part. So the fun of the story is trying to figure out whether what's happening is real or not.
Sounds heavily researched, is what you were saying earlier. You become a better writer the more you study stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and you get to utilize it. You read all these things, and if some incidents happen, okay. For example, I didn't know that there were actually runners back in World War II. And they chose kids because they were light on their feet.
So you know why I'm asking this question, but tell me why you think it's such a common thing for Filipino comic creators to try to put ancient Filipino mythology in a modern setting. I'm sure you know why I'm asking that question.
I mean, let's face it. We're proud. We want to have something that defines our stories, and we want it to come from what we know, what we've experienced in our own country, and it's we wanted to spell it out, because let's face it, superhero stories are for the better part are defined as American stories. So our way in, we figure, is to make it defined by our folklore, and that folklore leads to horror. So we want to have that identity, because when someone hears it, oh, okay, that's a Filipino story, But I do hope that that's just a foot in the door, and I hope it becomes later about the craft. It should be more about the craft than anything.
To the point where you can tell all sorts of stories, right?
Yeah, we're still, we're still at that embryonic stage, I think. You know, I mean, yes, we've been, comics in the Philippines has been around for a while, but
Yeah.
but now that we're breaking in and we want to like be put in this international space, it we have to like, do something more.
We have to put our stamp on it, and
Yeah,
then
we have
before we can diverge into all sorts
exactly.
of stories. Is there
Like
anything? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, for me, it's like, hey, budget, as I say, he's got great success with Trese, and I feel that with the Netflix show, it's going to elevate him to the next level. But the dream, I think, would be that he's not just doing, that when he writes new stories, it's not even about going to be Trese anymore. It's about going to be, Budget Tan did this. It's going to be more about that.
It's like from the writer of
And
Trese rather
yeah,
than
from the
the
writer
next
of
Trese.
Trese.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the dream would be that it wouldn't stop with them, you know?
no,
That's absolutely it.
no, it shouldn't. It shouldn't stop it like that. Um, and like I feel my role here, would be is to help people out. I mean, it's not just me trying to like, get somewhere, but I want to help other people, you know, get their comic book dreams come true. That's why the guys I work with, like for Mythopolis, I work for the Marco Anyala, who always had that dream, and the creator of Mythopolis. I'm really just the co-creator and the write and I mean yes I write it, but if say someone approaches me and says, hey, I like your concept and like that, I would bring Marco right into it. The same with War of Whispers. The idea was Andre Palma, and I wrote his book. But if anything, if it becomes an IP of any type, I would bring him in as well. So it's really about bringing everyone up.
So tell me in your role, putting on your hat as president of Comic Book Lab as well as your hat, as a creator,
Yeah.
how important is it for Filipino creatives to capitalize on this moment? And what do we need to do?
This is definitely a pivotal moment. I feel that based on what I've seen the last 4 or 5 years that I've been creating comics, we need to be empowered. We cannot be thinking anymore in terms that, we are work for hire. Oh, we can work for Marvel, day in and day out, which is great, which is still awesome to be in that place. But at the same time, let's start writing our own ticket. Let's start writing our own ticket. Let's not wait for things now. Let's not wait to like send our resume to Marvel. Let Marvel or DC come to us. Say, hey, that guy is awesome. Let's we'd be honored if you create a story for us. That should be where we go. That's where we should be going. We should be writing our own ticket. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. So speaking of Trese, you've got a couple of projects where the artist of Trese drew,
Yeah.
Stay, 21 Comic Stories, and Wak Wak. You would tell me what
Yeah.
those are about?
Sure. Stay 21 Pound Stories is written by Angelo R. La Cuesta, a Polanco Award winner. And he approached me with the idea that, hey, I got all these stories in my head, and I've never done comics, and I want to make these into comics. So I have 21 stories. Can you find enough artists who can do this? So I started from a place where, okay, wait, he's Sarge, that's his nickname. Sarge is like well known in his field. He was like saying, how do I break into comics? So I just told him, hey, the best thing to do is let's get artists who are well known in the field. So the first person that came up with me who I thought was Kajo, um, who but Jet was kind enough to give me Kajo's contact number, and we met up with the guy, and and Kajo's really swell guy. He just made it really easy, and he said, "Okay, sure, man. Sounds like a really interesting concept." And so
I think it's
started the
obvious
story.
Kajo just loves to draw, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the dude is a beast. I'm telling you, the guy's a beast. um, we were floored when we talked about the concept. We thought and told him like, oh, it's about this guy. Um, he's at home and he's haunted by this weird sound, and he's always taking care of his kid. And it turns out the twist is, so it's not a bit of a, it's not a spoiler to say, but like that there's an energy around the house, and it's something that's coming from the wife. So um so there, and then when he showed us the pages, we were floored, man. It was like, wow. I mean, I know the stuff he did for Trese, was awesome, but the detail that he put into it,
Yeah.
is something, it was something else. So that's how I approached it was a graphic anthology, a novel anthology. So, and we only had 5 months to do it. We had 5 months to launch it in Comic Con, and I think, shit, how the heck do we, get all these artists to finish all these things in 5 months? And I had to go through every single script, try to figure out who would be the right artist for each of these stories. And we got lucky. We really got lucky. Who we got? Roy Alan Martinez. We got John Amor. We got some really good talent here. I mean, just got lucky, and it's just thankful because because of my time in Comic Con and Comic Cat, getting to know everyone. That helped a lot.
Yeah.
Getting to talk to everyone, getting to feel their styles. So that was good. And
John Amor is read by hundreds of thousands of people every week with Urban Animal.
Yep.
It's insane. I remember discovering it and seeing the number of subscribers, and I'm like, whoa, John, what happened? Tell me
right?
tell me what's coming up for Comic Book Lab. Let's start with Third World Power.
Okay.
This is another one by
so,
you and Jim Jimenez, huh?
Yeah.
You guys love working
Jim
together.
and yeah, we do. I think we have a good we got a good synergy going, and we just said, okay, we seem to work well. We're familiar with how we operate. So I figured going to Third World Power, it would be easy. It would be relatively easy for us to like get into the flow of things. So Third World Power was what we pitched to Peacock, which is the Philippine Comics Festival. We pitched it in 2019, but it was like for 2020. Main head of that is Paul Heras, who also manages Comic App. So we pitched that, and we got lucky, and they liked it. They liked it enough that we became finalists for Peacock. So from there, we didn't even have a book. We just pitched it there. So since the start of 2020, we just conceptualized the story. It came out to like 104 pages. Basically, Third World Power is about this kid. He's a street kid, completely, stuck in the poverty of the Philippines, in the country. And one day, because he becomes a victim of EJK, and something gets triggered inside him. Something like he taps into the collective consciousness of the country, especially in terms of like how people are so pissed off at like injustice, and he harnesses it, and it becomes fire that he's able to manifest and wield. So using that, he uses it to like deal with a lot of social ills in the country. And so he goes after corrupt cops, he goes after corrupt politicians, drug lords. Eventually, we reach the the islands, all the territory disputes between the Philippines and other countries. It gets
I
a bit
like how
dicey.
you say "and other countries." We know which one you're talking about.
Oh, I know, I know. I'm just being diplomatic.
So tell me, how do you respond when some fans and readers say the words "comics shouldn't be political"?
Oh man, it's like, please, it's always been political, no matter what. Everything since Captain America,
Since
it's
Action
always been
Comics, I would even
political.
say.
Oh yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Action comics too, And if you look at Stan Lee was like, he was a product of his time. Everything was about like, the Cold War, about like, the threat of nuclear war. I mean, how can that not be political?
So why do you think people say that?
I think people just get triggered because if they have a belief, they have a certain belief, and they can't distinguish between the belief and the facts. And when someone, and especially like what I like about comics, it's truth to power. And if you don't hear something you like, it's gonna trigger you, and you're gonna come up with something to like. You'll try to come up with some kind of excuse, like, oh, comics should not be political. It should be nice and safe. It's never been safe.
I get
Seduction of
you.
the Innocent proved that it's never been safe.
Never. Yeah, I was saying Action Comics #1 literally has a panel of Superman dangling a politician from a window by the
Right.
ankle. So it's
Yeah.
always been political, guys. I think
It's always been.
I think there's something to the idea that it's not that people don't realize it's not political. That people don't realize. It's not that people don't realize it's political. It's that they're annoyed that it doesn't agree with their politics.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I said, like bring it further, some people just don't distinguish between their belief and the facts.
Hmm.
People assume that, what I believe is actually true.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard. I mean, that is hard. I mean, I myself admit, like, when at times I'm talking about something and it turns out like, wait a minute, turns out it was just an opinion. It's never, and I find myself having to reflect, about my beliefs, which is, I think, for me, a good thing.
Hmm.
You need to be like that. You need to be able to have empathy in writing comics. There has to be some level of sensitivity, of course, but you shouldn't be afraid when you have to say something that, that you think is gonna like shift people's mindsets. I mean, you need to. I mean, what are we here for if not to like question things? We need to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's not compelling writing. It's not gonna be it's safe. I
Yeah.
mean, let's be, Watchmen, Frank Miller's Dark Knight, they were always questioning authority.
Questioning the status quo. So
Yeah.
tell me about I Am Wildcard.
Okay. That was just a premise I came up with because I love the Dark Phoenix saga, and I always thought
I
it
see
was
it.
an interesting idea. You can see it, right? It's kind
I
of
see it.
obvious,
Yeah.
actually, and I just thought like, wow, Jean Grey was a very interesting, compelling character because she saved the universe, but she also threatened to destroy it. So I was thinking, what if I take it to another level? What if it's like, you know, what if it's a character who goes in there, and her first appearance, she kills thousands of people, and then she suddenly disappears, comes back, and she saves millions of lives. So, and then she disappears again. So the question becomes, what do you do when she shows up? How do you know how do you tackle this character, who's completely unpredictable? what do you, because this is a person who can go in any direction. So that's where that came from.
And the what strikes me here is the coloring. It's really good. Who's doing the coloring here? Oh, it's BK Peña.
BK Pena, yeah.
Yeah, like it's I think indie comics in the Philippines, comics made in the Philippines. I don't really expect it to be colored at all. And then
Yeah.
the coloring here is really good. How'd that work out? Because I've heard that coloring can really up costs.
Well, BK has been he's a as a colorist, he's a very we came out with a good deal, and I think he was just also very happy to work with Roy Alan Martinez,
Yeah.
our artist. He's a huge fan, and I think that sort of kind of inspired him to like really kill to crush it on the pages.
It's really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Why? So tell me about Ad Memoriam, because this is another one that is drawn by Kajo. It's written by Ria Lu.
Yeah. So Ria Lu came up with this idea of like a band that makes a deal with this entity, and for them to like become successful. But in return, what they don't realize is that every time they perform in concert, someone dies. So that was her idea, and I just thought, I think Tancho would be the perfect guy to do the story. He can come up with something kind of really super gothic, and just hit it, and come something with a bit of with a rock and roll slant to it.
Yeah.
So that's how we got Kajo in.
So
and
what happened here? Did Ria take the story to you, and then was it already fully written, or did she pitch it first?
She took the story to me, and she pitched the idea, and we this is a collaborative effort, mind you, with me and another partner of mine, Micah Fernandez. Our plan is to like make this a digital comic, and then see how much how much we can like earn from the revenues, and then convert it eventually into a print comic. So I've been acting as her editor. So at every stage, at each chapter, at each page, we've just been, she's been consulting with me to see how we can like, make this story work.
And so tell me, at the beginning, you said that, Comic Book Lab is where people hire you to make comics, right? So who has been commissioning these?
Well, like I said, we've been like private individuals have been approaching us. But I felt that, okay, I need to like, but it became eventually a bit, it got too slow. So I was thinking, okay, what else can we do to like, get this business flowing? So I did a bit of I did a lot of social media projects, a lot of social media strategy. But eventually, I decided, you know what, maybe I should be pitching, my services to companies. So I started doing that, and what I discovered, it wasn't working either. But what I later discovered is that when I pitched to international advocacy groups, so we've been doing projects for WHO, UNICEF, USAID Philippines. So that's been, they've been consistent clients since 2 years ago. We've also like done work for Sun Life and Manulife. So a lot of the projects are very different. Some of them in like
are any of the ones that we've mentioned so far been for any of those companies?
No.
Oh, okay.
The ones I've been showing are like more personal projects.
Yeah.
So the ones I just said were all really just the corporate stuff. That's the stuff that's been keeping our the business for the business side has been sustaining Comic Lab.
So people like Ria and BK Pena, Roy Alan Martinez, do you have a contract with them, or are they freelancing, or?
They're freelancing.
Okay.
Ria and I are partners. but BK, so the BK, Roy, they're all freelancing. But for me, it's like, hey, if I can like get projects for them as much as I can, and we seem to like working with each other, by all means, you know. But the dream is, but the dream really is that, if I can upscale comic book Lego to the point that, it can, be really a big global business. I'd love to put people on, I'd love to employ artists and writers to
Put
be
them on
full time.
staff with a fixed salary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool. Like, remember
Cross-gen.
CrossGen?
I was thinking of
Where they
cross-gen.
had that dream. Yeah, so they had that dream where they can have a. I wouldn't do a compound. I wouldn't like let's all live in some compound together. I wouldn't do that. But like, yeah, employ creators.
Yeah. And finally, tell me about the Doom of the Supermen.
Okay, that's another passion project. It's created by Ian Antonino. He just said like, dude, I just wanna create a comic that has no text, no lettering, and I just want the alien. I think basically the alien from the alien that we know slaughtering all these heroes. So the heroes in the comic are like just just analogs of the characters we're familiar with, from both Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of shout outs to old school characters like from the 70s. You're gonna see something like, oh, that looks like G.I. Joe with a kung fu grip, or something that looks Sentai or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's good. And he wants it like, he really wants it to be a really bloody experience.
Do you think, given the boom that Trese has made over, just even now, like, because my feed is nothing but, do you think it's going to inspire people to be making more material? Because I know we're hoping that it inspires platforms to be looking at our material, but do you think it's going to inspire people to be making more material?
I think for sure, because it's gonna reignite people's idea to like, oh, what if we come up with this concept? What if we have that concept? Like, I mean, like what I said with doing the Superman, it was something that we had to create, and then I talked to Juan Carlos Subiria, the artist in doing Superman, and we were all inspired to create these comics, to create these characters. But and this is pre Trese. I mean, Netflix. That and I'm saying it's few and far in between back then. But now I feel you're gonna see a constant stream of people doing this, creating concepts. But it's gonna be a challenge. It's one thing to create these things, it's another thing to pitch, and that's the reality. It's not as simple as you build it, they'll come. You're gonna have to sharpen up your skills. You're gonna have to sharpen your how you talk, how you present yourself, how you execute it. All these things that just come into play.
The salesmanship.
Exactly. The
marketing,
salesmanship, the marketing. We're talking nitty gritty stuff. You're gonna have to be prepared to read a contract. How are you gonna you have to learn how to read a contract, making sure you have to you're gonna have to start doing accounting, all this nitty gritty stuff. And
Yeah.
maybe there are gonna be some people who will be turned off by the idea of having to pitch, but there's gonna be maybe half of those people who are so passionate about it that yes, they'll put in they'll put the extra work in to do it.
Yeah, it's
So,
like
yeah.
whenever I see people bashing Stan because of the whole, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko thing, and then they're like, "Oh, he didn't actually write anything; he just marketed stuff." And I'm like, you must have never sold anything, like ever. You know how hard it is to sell? Oh my God. So that's
I totally agree with you. I mean, I have this thing, ever since I've become a creator myself. Um, um, I don't like. I honestly, for me, I don't like bashing creators anymore. I mean, when I was a geek, you didn't know any better, right? It's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
raping my childhood and stuff like that. But when you get into being a creator, and if you're a serious creator, whether it be in comics, TV, or movies, dude, no one's out to like create something shitty. They really want, everyone's out to like make something that that you guys will appreciate.
Yeah.
And for
I
you to
had that
bash it,
moment too. I had that turning point too. I know exactly what
right?
it feels like. Yeah.
Right? You know, you have for me, you have no right to actually, unless you've actually put the work, you've done the work yourself to bash someone. You know, it's easy to say, oh, I could do it better, but you
But
can't.
you can't.
You
Right?
can't. It's just easier to just like, it's just easier to throw shade.
It's easy to
It's
say you
just
could do it
easier.
better, but no, you can't.
Yes. No, you can't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, this
But
is way
let
harder than you think.
yeah. So unless you actually do it, you got no leg to stand on.
Yeah, I'm all for like, criticizing the art or maybe some of the choices made, but to be like, oh, you're raping my childhood. I'm like,
Yeah.
your childhood still exists.
Exactly. Exactly. It'll always be there. You can still read your old X-Men. You can still read your old Chris Claremont, John Byrne stuff.
You
It'll
can
always
you
be
can
there.
stop reading. You can pretend that these fictional stories didn't really happen because guess what? They didn't.
They didn't.
None of it happened. So yeah, that really gets to me too.
you
Nobody
know?
nobody sets out to make something bad, right?
Yeah.
So tell me something, JV. If people want to,
Sure.
people want to pitch to Comic Book Lab, really want to work with you, what are you looking for?
For me, it's you gotta know how to pitch. You gotta like figure, how to do the elevator pitch. How are you gonna tell? How are you gonna grab me? Because if you don't grab me within like the first couple of seconds, that's it. You gotta come up with something um, that I've never heard before. You gotta blow my mind. Um, it's got to be something I've never. People say all the time that there's no such thing as an original idea. There isn't. It's really just about the. It's honestly, it's really about the execution. But if you can just present yourself to me in the most eloquent way and just say something that just, you know, just opens my mind or shifts my mindset, yeah, I'm definitely gonna, hire you right then and there.
Yeah. There's no
I'll
such thing as
definitely
an
work with
original
you.
idea, but there are remixes.
Yeah, remixes, and you'll just come up, a remix so good you won't be able to tell it was ripped off from something else.
Absolutely. So, do you have any final things that you want to say about the state of Filipino comics today, or Comic Book Lab specifically?
Um, I think we're in exciting times. I'll say it. When people talk about like, oh, what's the industry like? And I would say it's not an industry.
No, it's not.
An industry means that we're self-sustaining. That we'll have people having their own comic books and they're living off it. They're living they're living off it, and it's a successful. I think the closest thing we can say that is like Trese, but that's just the exception to the rule. Right now, the
Mm-hmm.
rule's gonna change. The rule, if we can, let's turn all this excitement into some actual work. All right, it's really hard work. Um, it's the same thing with Comic Book Lab. Yeah, we have stuff out there. Um, the nice thing is, I'll tell you a personal story. When I started, I was thinking of when I created Mythopolis with Marco Manialac, when I did War of Whispers with Andre Palma and Jim Jimenez, and even the work we did with Sarge, I was thinking the whole time that this is it. This is it. This is gonna change. Make things better. We're gonna, Comic Book Lab will be making millions and stuff like that. And when it, and really, it hasn't happened. Hasn't happened yet. But I'd say the success for anything, is that you did it, you created it. That's the success right there. That you put it out there, versus someone saying, "Oh, I'm a writer. I hear this all the time. I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm an aspiring writer." Stop being an aspiring writer. Be a writer.
Once you write something, you're a writer.
Yeah.
Right?
Put it out there. That is the success right there. And just for me in Comic Lab, it's all about like just keep on doing it, keep on being productive. And if it, and maybe eventually something will happen, but you just got to keep on throwing out there. Success is just the tip of the iceberg. It's really the icing on the cake. But in the end, everything other than that is really just putting product out there, telling stories you want to say, want to tell us, telling stories that you want to share. Because like, if you don't have any stories to begin with, forget it. That and also the skill, also the skill, making sure that you know the skills. When I went into this, I was crazy. I said, "Oh, I must be a comic book writer." No, if I had to go back into it, I wouldn't have quit my job, my nice little job, my nice cushy corporate job. I would have kept it there and just worked at night like Budget did.
Yeah.
I should versus instead I was crazy. I threw caution to the wind and I jumped into it. Yes, I had some things like passive income. I got lucky that way, but for other people, keep your job. Make sure that if you ever get into comics, that make sure that you're actually good. Because it's a risk, man.
Yeah, people are always like talking about Bill Watterson has this whole thing about how he quit his job and he just did his comics and everybody should follow the dream. And I'm like, Bill Watterson, for every one of you there must be like 100 people who didn't make it because they weren't good enough, and you're great. So like,
exactly, you're Bill Watterson.
You're Bill Watterson, right? So so there's a practicality element is what I'm saying. But I mean, if you want to do it, you got to make time, right? You got to find a way to, you got to.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a case, it's not a case of this writing. It's knowing that, it's really knowing the craft. You need to know the craft. You want to be, you have to be the best at it. I've done some workshops in the past, and it's like always a case that you gotta tell me something new. You gotta like execute in a way that I've never heard of. I've heard of the story before. Then that's how I know that there's skill there. Talent's not enough. Talent will only get you so far, and that and you gotta take that chip off your shoulder, because you gotta surrender your ego. You have to surrender your ego. You can't think that you're better than everyone else, because man, even the guy who did a shitty comic, it doesn't matter that he did a shitty comic. He put it out there and he probably worked his ass off, and he did it and he made it.
The worst thing you do, the worst thing that you do is better than the best thing that you didn't do.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I know, like, there's a lot of things, walking around Comic-Con, I see a lot of artists who really are not sure how to sell themselves or don't know how to sell themselves, because I think the best example of this has to be somebody like Bill Finger, the actual creator of Batman, who never marketed himself as the guy who actually designed Batman. He never put it out there. He never tried to lobby for anything. He never even used it to his credit when he's trying to get other jobs. Meanwhile, the guy who gets credited for Batman is Bob Kane, and he barely did anything but except sell himself, right?
Yeah.
So it's a key skill.
It's a key skill. You can't be. It can't be like, oh, you can't be shy about self-promoting.
Yeah.
You can't be shy. Because I think some people think that if you promote yourself, you're like showing off. But no, it's part of it's an SOP.
Yeah, that's the
It's
hustle.
just SOP. It's the hustle.
Yeah.
You know, you can't like, oh, I'm not gonna like dirty my hands and do that. No.
And let's close this off by you self-promoting.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, I'm Jaden Tanjuatco, Chief Comic Chief Chief Creative Officer of Comic Lab. We create comics for clients. We create comic book content for clients. And yeah, I mean, if you've got a story that that you want to tell, you want to share, and or you have a target audience and you have this or an advocacy or an issue on a committee, you can go to us. We'll create something that will, you know, that will reach your audience and that will resonate with them, and hopefully change the way they see things and make them prompt them to do something about it.
Great. Thank you for joining us, JV. This was great.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Doug.